Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Sarah and I like to talk about books, and today is going to be all about the quick reads because let's just say that hypothetically you're just now realizing that it's the end of November, which means the end of the year is very quickly approaching, and maybe you have further to go on that reading goal than you thought that you would at this point. No worries. No judgment from me, but absolutely no worries. Stick around for this video because I am going to throw out some tips on ways that you can maybe get through some books a little bit quicker than you normally would, and I'm also going to give some recommendations for books that I think you could read relatively quickly, either because the page count is slow or because they are just super fast paced. So if you want to hit that goal, stick around and I'll see what I can do to help you get there. Before I get into any specific book recommendations, there are just a few general tips that I want to throw out there in case you're not already participating in them because they will help speed up your reading. And the first one, audiobooks. Always audiobooks. There are so many times where I find myself able to listen to audiobooks even more towards the end of the year because of all the times where I'm like driving from one holiday event to another and like visiting extended family that lives further away, or wrapping presents or decorating the house, baking. There's so many times where I find I'm doing something and I could very easily add an audiobook into the situation and it will add to my enjoyment, and it will also not distract from the things that I'm currently working on. So I highly recommend just checking out and seeing if the book that you're interested in reading next is available at your library via audiobook format. It's a game changer. The second tip that I have, if you don't currently have any graphic novels on your TBR, add them. Add them and read them because you can get through like a 300-400 page graphic novel in like an hour or two. Again, utilize your library. Hopefully, if your library has some like decent selections, you can go and like just see what they have available. There are graphic novels in every single genre. So just pick your favorite genre and explore some graphic novels in that genre and see what you can find. They're almost always worth it, at least for like the art. They're almost always worth it. And there's also like there's several graphic novels that I'm aware of that are just like on Kindle Unlimited. Give them a shot. See if you like it. If you don't already read graphic novels, just give them their moment and see if you like it, because even if you don't like it, then you know? Another tip that I have is to DNF. Stop reading a book if you do not like it, if you're not enjoying it, if you find that you're just like moving through it sluggishly, because you're going to end up reading faster if you're reading something that you actually enjoy. If you're just trying to power through something that you don't like, or you're not getting like any enjoyment out of, do you think you're going to be able to read through a bunch of books if you're not having a good time? No, no, give yourself an opportunity, set yourself up for success, and read the things that you really like. And even if it's just putting a book down for now, if it's a slower paced book and you think you're going to come back to it at another point in time, that's totally fine. But put it down for now, pick up something that you think you're going to go through quickly, And then in January, come back to some of those slower reads. Now, this is obviously only if you're feeling pressured to reach that reading goal. If you want to keep on doing your slower paced reads, do that. I'm not telling you not to read certain books because they're slower paced or that you're digesting them at a slower pace. You can obviously do that. But if you want to read through books quickly, DNF. DNF them and then find the one that's speaking to you in that moment. Final tip, again, set yourself up for success. Pick up the small books, pick up the books under 300 pages. If you're trying to reach your reading goal, don't be picking up the 600-page tome or the 12-part series with 1,000 pages in each of them. Do yourself a favor, pick up some of the smaller books. All of the books that I will be recommending in this video are going to be under 300 pages. If they're over 300 pages, I will make a special note that they are over 300 pages. But if they are over 300 pages, the only reason I'm recommending them is because I probably finished them within a day. Fast paced. Of course, the stack that I'm working with couldn't have been in the order that I need to talk about them in. That would have been way too organized. Okay, so the first books that I want to talk about are Pocahontas and Ranjikura by Tayi Tibble. These are memoirs as told through poetry collections, and poetry collections are something that are like almost always relatively short. And if you listen to them specifically in audiobook format, which I highly, highly, highly recommend, they go so quickly, but they have such an impact that I was just hooked the entire time that I was reading these. So Pocahontas is the debut collection from Tayi Tibble, and then it is followed up by Ranchikura. And like, can we just take a moment to appreciate these covers? They are stunning. But yeah, Pocahontas is the debut. Ranchikura is the more recent poetry collection. I read them out of order. I don't think you need to read them within a specific order. Tayi Tibble is an Indigenous woman to New Zealand, and the way she speaks to femininity and ancestry and colonialism and mythology is deeply personal, but also incredibly cool. And then I took down a couple of my favorite quotes from these just to give you a taste of her writing style. And the first is, "Aren't you infatuated with the nerve they had to imagine me and make it happen?" She's talking about her ancestors. It's so cool. And then one that just kind of gutted me was, "What does it say about me that even the suggestion of an apology is sexy?" Whew. And then in Pocahontas, like I said, I read this one second, but right off the bat, she says, "In fact, it must be difficult not to sprout a head of snakes in a society that constantly hisses at you." And again, incredibly quick reads, but I definitely recommend the audiobooks. Go check them out. So the next book that I want to recommend is Open Water by Caleb Zuma Nelson. He is an autobi author for me, and it started with this book. I'm specifically recommending Open Water though, because this one is shorter. His second book, Small Worlds, is a little bit longer, but if you like this one, you'll definitely like that one. You should definitely check it out at some point in time. Open Water is his debut, and it is absolutely lovely. It's very poetic and lyrical. It's a seriously impressive debut book, and it's written in the second point of view. This is a story that explores falling in love in an unjust world, and I think it's really well summarized on the back of the book, where it says, "Caleb Zuma Nelson has written an ode to the Black creativity, love, and survival that we need right now." And the way that he weaves together the themes of race, masculinity, love, and art is just beautifully executed. I cannot recommend this one enough. It is only 176 pages, and I will recommend it literally any opportunity I get. And like I said, if you do end up picking this book up and you really like it, then I do recommend Small Worlds. I think that one is closer to 350 pages, so maybe not a great read if you're trying to like get to a reading goal really quickly, but I highly recommend it. That one focuses more on like a father-son relationship and like masculine relationships and how being a black man in Britain impacts the relationships between men and masculinity, and specifically music and community. It's just, I know I'm just like throwing out buzzwords, but like it's a beautiful story. The next book that I want to recommend is I Who Have Never Known Men by Jacqueline Hartman. This one was so cool. It is a dystopian story that I literally didn't know much about as I was going into it. I kind of went into it blind. I just knew that it was about this woman in a bunker, and all she knew was like bunker life. And honestly, I'm kind of glad that that's all I knew going into it, but I'll give you more details in case you don't want to go in as blind as I did. But essentially, it's about this woman. She was like, there's these 40 women. They were captured and put into a bunker and are highly scrutinized. There's high security for these women in these bunkers. They're not allowed to touch. They're not allowed to like make too much noise. Like, there's not a lot that they're able to do, but they are just in this bunker year after year. And really, the only way that they're able to tell that time is passing is because the woman that we're getting the perspective of was put in the bunker as a young child. So they're able to tell how long they've been in captivity in this bunker based off of the growth of this child. This is a mysterious, like dystopian sci fi, and it does leave you with quite a few questions unanswered. However, one of the big questions that it poses is just like, how do you define humanity? And like, ultimately, what does it even mean to be human? And it's super interesting. I would give this one a read. I think it's like 170 pages. 171 pages. Nailed it. And then we have Small Things Like These by Claire Keegan. Obviously, this is a teeny tiny book. You can read it pretty quickly. I think it's 119 pages. This is a very quiet story with a very strong message. It is set in Ireland in the 1980s, 1985 specifically. And it tells the story of Bill Furlong, who is a like small town family man. He is a small business owner, and Bill ends up coming face to face with the ugly truth that one of the convents in his community is operating as a Magdalene laundry. Everyone in this town is used to kind of turning a blind eye to the harm that is being perpetuated onto these women and their young babies. And when Bill comes face to face with this reality, he has a hard time turning away from it. And it causes him to, look back on his own life, his own past, his current family, his young daughters, and ultimately make a decision on how he's going to move forward. I read this towards the tail end of last year and I really enjoyed it. I haven't picked up more Claire Keegan. but I definitely want to. Oh, this won the Booker Prize in 2022. There you go. Do you even need my recommendation when you have bookers? And then Carmilla by Joseph Sheridan LaFano, edited by Carmen Maria Machado. At this point, I will literally pick up anything with Carmen Maria Machado's name on it. And I also think that that's probably the only version of this story that is worth reading, because Carmen Maria Machado went into this book with a very specific goal and intention, and that is to bring shame to LaFano and his inadequacy in telling this story. He specifically wrote Carmilla based off of real life people, two women who are in a sapphic relationship together, and what he excludes from this story and the way that he twists their words is disgusting. And Carmen Maria Machado wants to shed light on that. Carmen Maria Machado specifically says, I wish this edition to bear Lafano's shame. I wish the reader to come to the book with a complete understanding of its inadequacy. And I think we should all just be a little bit more like Carmen Maria Machado in that way. Now, this book is 335 pages. However, I think it deserves a spot on this list because I read it so incredibly quick. It had me enthralled from the very first pages. If I had to pick like a tagline for it, would literally be gay, do crimes, but with a lot of heart. And I think that sums this up perfectly. In this story, we have Percy. He is an aristocrat. He has this father who's a lord, and he's just absolutely terrible. And he needs to steal back his mother's diary from his father. So he ends up getting the help from this reluctant Kit Webb, who used to be a highwayman, but he has been reformed. He just runs this like coffee shop in town now, and Percy is able to convince him to help him steal back his mother's diary, his late mother's diary, from his father. This literally had me crying on one page and then laughing on the next. And if you end up loving this story as much as I did, then you are also going to want to pick up the second book in the series, which is The Perfect Crimes of Marion Hayes. I don't want to give away too much in this book in case you want to read that one first. Just know that the like epistolary between the two characters within this story had me giggling. Like I was like a little girl giggling at how perfect they are. I recommend it. Just do it. Just do it. And then also, I would be doing a great disservice to this list if I did not recommend All Systems Red by Martha Wells. This is the first book in the Murderbot series, and technically you could just read it and leave it alone from there. Like you don't have to continue with the series, but like why would you not want to? They're so good. Each of these books are like around 150 pages, and they are just so quickly digestible because they are so cool. Essentially, you have this security unit who overrides their protocols and is able to like gain sentience. Like they were already sentient, but they had all of this like software that was like suppressing what they were able to do, and they were able to hack that and gain sentience, but still operate as a security unit. They end up getting assigned to this one mission where there's these group of scientists and they're exploring this isolated planet, and stuff goes wrong on said planet, and the security unit is able to help the scientists survive. And also then the scientists are looking at the security unit and rethinking what it means to be human and just humanity as a whole, and the way that these AI um, bots are treated. And it's just so interesting. There's a lot of like found family elements within this story, and again, it's like such a quick read. It goes so fast. But I was completely enthralled the entire time. I think I've made it through like 3 of these books, and every single time I pick up this series I'm like, oh my gosh, I love this so much, and then I like put it down for a while, but it's just like so much fun to come back to. I could see this being a series that like once I get to the end I'll just like restart. And again, this list would not be complete if I failed to mention Pet and Bitter by Akwaeke Emezi. This is required reading. These are YA speculative fiction stories, and if you haven't read them yet, it's actually illegal. You have to read them. Bitter is Pet's prequel, and I actually read them out of order. They were released Pet first and then Bitter. That is how I read them, but I've heard of people doing it the other way, and still enjoying the story. I don't think there's a particular order you have to pick them up in. So if you're like looking on your like at your library and one is available first, I would go for that one. In Pet, we have this young girl named Jam, and she is accidentally able to summon this creature from one of her mother's paintings. And this creature comes out and it's like, I was sent here to destroy a monster that is in your community. And the only problem with that is that Jam lives in like this utopia where no one believes that there's any monsters left. They have gone through this whole revolution already and they got rid of all of the monsters. However, Pet knows that there is something going on, and it was specifically sent to that community for the intention of ridding the world of a monster. So it asks this whole question of like, how do you get rid of a monster if nobody even is accepting the truth that it exists? And then in Bitter, we actually see Jam's mother's story, who's named Bitter, and it takes us through that initial revolution and the fight for the revolution and the role that art plays within the revolution. Akwaeke Emezi does such a good job with this series. I would recommend this in any situation at all times, but specifically if you're looking for like quick reads to read for the end of the year, specifically going into next year, I think these two should be at the top of your list. Just looking at my notes from Pet, and one of the quotes that I see is, "The unseen can tear your eyes open when it comes into sight, and sometimes the mind behind that tears as well." I think that summarizes Pet really well. Okay, and then the quickest book that I have on this list is The Six Deaths of the Saint by Alexi Harrow. This is the coolest story, and it's told in like 30 pages. I don't know how they managed to do this. It's on Kindle Unlimited. It's part of, I think, one of the like Amazon original series. This book was phenomenal. It tells the story of this like young servant girl who gets chosen to be the king's fighter, like head knight, and she ends up being guided by this saint who gives her like premonitions almost of like what she needs to do next. And it takes her through her lives, being guided by this saint and becoming the best knight that she could possibly be, and bringing all of this honor and glory to this king. And it's so good, and it tells such a complete and vivid story. Again, in only 30 pages, it's so impressive. It's so incredibly impressive. If you have a spare 45 minutes, give this a read. And then for those of you who are just, completely unserious and want a ridiculous holiday novella, there are several that you can choose from on Kindle Unlimited. Maybe try Dear Monster Claus by Maeve Black, and you can read about not Santa, but Santana, who is a dragon and tastes like candy canes. Or you could read Mistletoe by Kimberly Lemming. This is part of the Mead Mishap series, and you can read about, fake dating your way through some winter festivities with a fox demon. There's also Cookies and Cream. If you've ever looked at the gingerbread man and thought, hear me out, just beware that if you do end up clicking on any of these books in Kindle Unlimited, your recommendations on there may never be the same. And on that note, I'm going to end this video here and let you guys get back to your reading goals. I hope you guys have an excellent time reaching those reading goals, but just know if you're feeling really stressed about it and you need somebody to say it out loud, not that you need my permission, but if you need to hear it out loud, just know that if these goals are stressing you out too much, let them go. There's no shame in letting them go. Have a good time with your reading. But in the comments below, I would love to hear how your reading goals are going, and if you're planning on doing anything different next year. While you're down there commenting, you might as well like this video and subscribe to this channel. But if you're still here with me, thank you so much for being here today. I hope you have a beautiful, beautiful day. Mwah. Now get reading.